Hi everyone, my name is Antonella Zottala and I want to talk to you about a hidden epidemic and also a very invisible wound, which is the narcissistic wound, especially when it comes to a parent who has those traits, the inability to attend to a child's needs, to maintain boundaries, to self-soothe a child when they need to. um, immature immature parents that can have an impact on our childhood, unavailable parents. um, just want to specify that sometimes unavailable parents aren't necessarily parents that have toxic behaviours or that intentionally want to do damage. There are a lot of situations where that might make a parent unavailable, and it's not these ones that I'm really um, talking about. Even though I want to acknowledge that even through no fault of their own, being for a parent that is unemotionally unavailable to a child, it can still impact them. But that's not to blame the parent. I guess I really want to talk about parents that do the damage because of the certain toxic traits that they have or limits that they have, such as not being able to show that empathy. And a lot of children that have been brought up with parents, especially mothers, that that have narcissistic traits, have felt very not only invisible to the parent but also invisible to society and alone in being in having their pain and suffering acknowledged and having the impact of developmental trauma acknowledged. So I wanted to put it out there and give people some kind of comfort and validation, and also to give those experiences a voice and to start the conversation around this. So developmental trauma happens obviously when we're children, and we can grow up in, like I said, in childhoods, in households that are unpredictable. So where there's a lot of screaming, where there's a parent whose mood switches, and it feels like for a child you're walking on eggshells. You don't know when your parent's gonna be in a good mood or in a bad mood. So you start to learn to be hypervigilant, and that becomes your survival mechanism. A sense of not feeling safe when you grow up and you haven't had your needs met. So either when you've had parents that have silenced your suffering, they've not allowed you to have emotions. They have the belief of children are to be seen but not heard. When you are seen as an extension of somebody, so an extension of your parent, and your autonomy is stripped, so you don't get to learn who you are. You're getting told who to be. You're getting punished if you are someone else outside of what your parent wants. And growing in environments where you have controlling parents, and you learn compliance and obedience, and that if you rebel or if you are your authentic self, then that is not welcomed and you're not allowed to have that. So these are a lot of where wounds can stem. Parents that don't have boundaries, so that might barge into children's, into the child's bedroom at any given moment, not respecting privacy, not even knowing what privacy is, or allowing that to the child, parents that think they know better. So obviously certain times, depending on the child's age, we have to make decisions for them. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody who just doesn't allow that growth, or doesn't allow that exploring of self and that self-expression in the child as a parent. So obviously, you know, or well, a lot of people don't know because they treat children as adults when obviously they're not, and there's that growth and development. And when we are born, we're not born with a developed brain. In fact, it's between birth and 5 years of age, we receive about 50% of our emotional programming. So those interactions with our parents and those experiences with our parents are like the blueprints, and they will impact the relationship we have with self and the relationship we have with others and how we perceive the world later on as adults. So it's really, really important to take all this into account. So 50% of our emotional programming is made between the ages of birth and 5 years old. That's why they're called the formative years, and they are seen in psychology as the critical years that kind of shape us or have an impact on our personalities, or like I said, how then who we become in adulthood, what might make us more vulnerable to things like depression and anxiety and substance abuse later on, that are all kind of survival responses from trauma. So there can be symptoms of trauma. Then between the ages of 5 to 8, we receive only 30% 30% of that emotional programming, making it overall with a 80% that we are programmed psychologically. And by the ages of 8 to 18 years of age, we only receive 15%. Thereby, by the time we're 18 years old of age, roughly, this is roughly, obviously, it's not putting people in boxes, and it's not like a set framework. It's a rough estimate. We'll receive that 15%, and then we're 90% done, leaving 5% for the rest of our lives. So as you can see, between birth and 5 years old, receiving 50% is really, really, really critical, because the more we get older, the less we're getting. So if we are so that programming at an early age sees us carrying on those things into adulthood, and then into adulthood it can be really, really difficult to break those patterns, because those surviving patterns have actually worked for us. In a way, they have kept us safe. And a lot of the times, because we have this unresolved trauma that we don't even recognize as trauma, we can start having shame. And I think we live in a society as well that shames us. You know, we need to be, we're constantly being judged. There isn't a trauma informed education out there, and knowledge. So people are being shamed into thinking there's something wrong with me. I need to be strong. I need to smile. What's wrong with me? I'm not allowed to feel this because other people have had it worse, or because we've had to bury a trauma so deep in order to survive. We don't recognize it. We question ourselves and think, oh, well, I don't know anything that's happened to me, so why am I feeling this way? And that shame is really, really, really toxic in itself. If we have grown up in an environment, again, where our emotions haven't been accepted. We might believe that emotions are burden to other people. Emotions aren't acceptable. Society doesn't really, is always telling us to smile. Oh, you'll be okay. It's going to be all right. You'll be fine. And a lot of the times we use these very destructive and or even unhelpful responses because really there's a trauma within us that we don't want to recognize, and that seeing that other person's pain can actually really tap into our own unresolved issues, and we might not want to be to confront that or address that, and it's too much for us. So actually we do that, we silence other people because of that, which is totally unhelpful and unsupportive. But also when it comes to toxic families, there's this societal thing that, especially if it's a mother, mothers are seen as loving, mothers are seen as caring, mothers are seen as protective thingies. So it's really hurtful for a child that's grown up with a toxic mother, or a mother who's had toxic behaviours that have really been destructive and had an impact on them and their lives and left scars, to be able to feel free to talk about it in a world where mothers are just seen as perfect. And also family, we get taught don't. A lot of people like Prince Harry get punished when they are open and honest about family members and certain hurts that family members or the family unit has caused. People going, don't wash your dirty laundry in public, or it's never the right time to speak about something, or somebody that has hurt you or an abuser is old and you're just such a bad person, not only because this might be your mother, because now, and family, but now they're also old, and if they're not feeling well as well, it's like, oh my word, you're the monster. How could you? You disrespectful child, you black sheep of the family. How dare you? And I just want to also point out that when an adult child as well has the courage to break generational cycles, breaking generational cycles takes strength. And actually, you're a badass. If people have problems, that you have boundaries and that you want to be treated right, it's their problem, it's society's problem. And family does not give anyone the right to treat you badly or to continue to treat you badly. We shouldn't be saying it's okay because it's your mother, it's your sister, it's your cousin, it's whoever part of a family member. A lot of people's mental health here are being affected. A lot of children that do separate and are strangled from family have to go through so much grief to make that decision. It is the most hurtful decision ever, no matter how much that parent might be unhealthy or toxic, because we are programmed for attachment. We are born for attachment, and especially to have that attachment and that love and approval from who is meant to be the first person, the very first people to love us and show us that, to nurture us, to protect us, to make us feel like we're worthy and we have value and we are lovable. Not to be seen and heard in itself is such a deep wound. And I think we really need to stop as well with just thinking that physical things are damaging, so that our parents had to beat us black and blue, or we had to just have physical abuse in order to feel worthy of our pain or worthy of saying this has had detrimental effects on me and the impact is great. And the healing and recovery is the hardest thing, and I have a right to feel this pain. And my pain is valid. And that's what I hope to give to people out there in this video. So I hope it's done that. Obviously, I don't want to make it too long, and I realise I'm very passionate about things, so this has been a bit lengthy, but I just wanted to share that with you, and to acknowledge how, as well, how difficult it is for us to get boundaries again, and that's what we need to heal. In order to heal, we need to set boundaries with our parent or that family member. But I say parent or caregiver because when it's a caregiver or a parent, especially, it's it's really, really damaging, and we tend to feel, a lot of clients as well will come to me, or other people will feel really disloyal, being able to say, this person has hurt me. And I've never met anyone who has been malicious or a bad person, or I always feel that there's always that traumatic bonding that gives so much loyalty to people, that sometimes parents that don't deserve it for the hurt that they actually have done. And whilst I think it's good to have compassion, the other thing that I really want to say is having that understanding and compassion for a parent is great, especially if you want it, and that can really help you to understand what's going on with that parent. And a lot of the time, sometimes that parent has had wounds themselves. They've been traumatized themselves, and that those wounds have carried on into that generational. But at the same time, it does not give anybody the right to continue that behavior. And if you are not safe, then you might consider having to break. You have no other choice but to break away from that parent. And it's totally okay not to like somebody who's hurt you. It's okay if you do not want to forgive that person. Forgiveness isn't necessarily for your healing, and forgiveness can mean different things for different people. So it's doing what you feel helps in your healing. If that is forgiveness for you, fair enough. But again, don't feel pressured into society or this world. Do what is best for you, and don't apologize for being you. Don't apologize for doing what is best for you and putting your mental health first, no matter who that person is. You deserve to be treated accordingly. You deserve to have a parent who is loving, who is nurturing, who protected you. And although we can't change other people, and sometimes we can never have that, we can still give ourselves that parent and become our own parent to self. And a lot of healing is also recognizing to have that self-compassion and looking at those wounded parts and knowing that those wounded parts have been trying to protect us. They're wanting to feel heard and seen, and having to welcome those parts inside us, because when we annihilate them or shun them away or not hear them, then again it's playing on that childhood wound where we self-abandon ourselves or we self-betray. So it's really important to have that compassion and to see ourselves as not failures, not bad, not weak, but traumatized, and having different parts of us that are traumatized, you know, that need our love, and that we define ourselves, and that our emotions and our sufferings are valid, and we don't need permission. We don't need permission from anyone to heal, and we don't need permission from anyone to have our emotion, to have our experience validated, because other people don't know what it's like. Most people that judge or say these things don't know what it's like. Nobody has gone through what we have. Nobody knows what it's like to have had those experiences, being us. They're not in our brains, they're not in our bodies to judge our feelings. And your pain is valid. And I hope you can take that with you today. And I hope you can also take that developmental trauma might be invisible, but you are not invisible to me. I see you and I hear you. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.